Providing constructive feedback is one of the most important things you can do for online learners. And I think clear assignment descriptions are the key here. And you need to just make sure students know everything that's expected. You might even over-prescribe what the directions are so that it's very clear and students don't have to worry about the step-by-step process, but instead can focus on the content and the product that they're creating that showcases their knowledge. So ways that I share these expectations is through the clear assignment descriptions, and then having rubrics either teacher generated or student generated, where students can put their own ideas into the categories and talk about what they think should be scored on the particular assignment and how it should be scored and kind of the value of each of the elements that they come up with. Or I also think you can rely on samples of really good work. I often share with my students exemplars from previous students. Sometimes the assignments change between courses or they get improved based on student feedback, but usually I do have a handful of a few really good examples of student work that I share with the students. There are a couple of different ways to provide feedback to students in the online classroom, and the first is the most self-explanatory. It's really just that written feedback that you're probably used to receiving. I also would suggest that you consider providing audio feedback, and there's a couple of different ways you can do it. Sometimes I'll just use the QuickTime player on my MacBook to record a couple minutes worth of audio feedback. You can also use a website called Vocaroo where you turn on an audio recorder and then it generates a URL that's housed online that you can share with the students. Another way that I've been able to provide feedback most recently is with video feedback. And in that case, I pull up the students' work on the screen and then I turn on typically my Zoom room and I start recording myself just highlighting or pointing specifically to the passages that are either well done or why they were well done. I will identify that, or kind of the part that needs some help and I can be a little bit critical of by actually pointing it out and using real examples from their work. And so having the work up on the screen while you're doing that really makes it pretty easy to do. To ensure that it's valuable feedback, it has to be timely, and I know that that can be the most difficult thing to do when you're grading so many projects, but I think it has to be timely. I also think even if the work received is worthy of an A, to make the feedback valuable, you have to tell the students something else they could add to it that would make it even better. So something that could be improved to take it even to the next level. It's already an A, but what else could they be critical of? What else could they add to this that would just really make it over the top? And I like to identify that to them because I think there's always room for improvement in some capacity. If the feedback is a little bit more negative and I'm critiquing something, or I'm trying to give them some advice that will help them in future, I think the best way to do it is just to be honest and provide specific examples of what you want them to be able to do. I don't always believe in that idea of sugarcoating it or sandwiching the negative between two positives, because I'm not sure that that's very valuable. I think the students need to hear what the honest feedback is. And if they're really interested in improving, they will take it to heart and realize it's not a personal attack on them. It's just some specific advice about what they can do to kind of make their work a little bit better. I have some time-saving tips for providing feedback, and there's 4 in particular that I want to share with you. The first is that you have to set aside time to do it. When you're teaching online, it's easy to underestimate how much time it takes to provide high-quality feedback. So you need to schedule that time for yourself. I usually have an hour or 2 of grading and feedback built into most days of the week when I'm teaching an online class. And if I'm teaching multiple, it's several hours a day where I can really provide good feedback. The second tip I have is to use a template that you can customize for each student. So for example, you might start by sharing something specific that they did really well, and you should have that general part of the feedback already created, those sentences already written, and then you just fill in the blanks that are specific to their work. So most LMSs, including Moodle, have a built-in way of sharing rubrics or grading guides or frequently used feedback comments. So you can rely on your LMS to help you with this idea of templating out the feedback. The next tip I have is to divide up the task of providing it. So I'll evaluate usually no more than 5 projects or papers or portfolios, and then I'll take a break. And that keeps me refreshed. It helps me see the work with fresh eyes every time I go into it, when I'm only looking at a few at a time. And along with that, I also will try to break up or change up which part of the roster I start grading first. So in the beginning of the semester, I grade alphabetically just as the names appear in Moodle. But towards the second, third, fourth, fifth module, I start at the midpoint of the roster and then go through, or I'll start at the bottom of the roster and work my way up. Because I think sometimes what happens is you grade the ones in the beginning first, you give them a lot of feedback, and then you're tired of giving feedback by the end. So the last few people just don't get the best feedback. And so instead of shortchanging them, I just try to evaluate how I'm viewing the projects each time around. And the last tip I have is to make sure that you use the student's name. You should be addressing them by their name. It's building a connection with them as individuals, and it helps establish your teaching presence, that you're talking to them, you know who they are, and you're just addressing them by their name. It's very professional. I think it's something that should be done even at K through 12 levels. You have to be willing to invest the time to provide good feedback, and you have to figure out what works best for you. How can you make it easiest for yourself? How can you schedule it out so that you break it up? But it's critical to your students' success, and that really is just dependent on the amount of time that you're willing to put into it. So my advice is put the time in, invest it, and you'll see that your student work will improve as the semester progresses.